What's up, internet friends? Welcome to the Empty Escape Pod. In this video, I'm going to be giving a spoiler-free review of Netflix's recent series, Altered Carbon. I should start off by saying I'm a huge sci-fi fan. My three favorite movies are all sci-fi movies. I would definitely say it is my favorite genre. That said, I absolutely loved this show. Fair warning, there is a lot of nudity and sex, so if that is the type of thing that offends you, definitely stay away. Now that you've been warned about that, I absolutely love the whole premise of the show, which is removing consciousness from the body, and that's not a spoiler. Like I said, it's the whole premise of the show, so they set that up in like the first 5 minutes or so, and I think they do a very good job of exploring some of the implications of that. They touch on religion a little bit. They go pretty hard into what it means for socioeconomic structure, and they kind of go into how it affects people's relationships. And overall, like I said, I think that's a really interesting concept to begin with, and I felt like they did a really good job of exploring that and kind of fleshing out what it means for society where we are able to remove our consciousness from the body. One thing that I was very pleasantly surprised by was how much they made me care about the characters. I didn't necessarily think that was going to be the case after the first episode. I was into it and into the whole world, but I didn't really at that point I couldn't see myself caring as much about the characters as I did by the end of it. So I think they did a really good job with that, taking a character that's maybe not necessarily the most likable inherently, and kind of explaining why that's the case, and getting you to understand that and be okay with that, and kind of accept him for who he is, and kind of sympathize with him actually for what made him that way. It seems like sci-fi stuff is always, if it's good, it's always able to make me emotional, and that was definitely the case with the ending of Altered Carbon. And again, I didn't think that was going to be the case after seeing the first episode. I thought it was kind of more there's definitely intellectual parts of it because of the world, and I thought it was going to be kind of more just like a cool thing. But by the end of it, I was really invested in these characters, and they did manage to get that emotional response out of me in the last episode. There is one minor complaint that I have with it, and that is that in the show we get the protagonist, we see almost his entire life, but there is a small part of it that we don't really get to see. We kind of get an idea of what's going on with him at that point, but we only get a very small snippet into that. And I think mainly just because we get everything else in his life except for that makes me really curious to know what's going on with him then, especially because the way we see him before that time and afterwards, he I would say that he's a pretty different person, and there is definitely a reason for that, and that's understandable, but I'm still interested to see how he was during that time that we don't really get very much of. So I don't necessarily want to see that fleshed out in like a second season or anything, but I would just be curious to know what he was up to, maybe just kind of quickly alluded to or something like that. But I am curious about what was going on there. Again, that's probably just because we see everything except for that small point, so because that's the only thing that's missing, that kind of makes me really curious about it. But in summary, I think the whole concept is really cool, and they do a very good job of exploring it. I really liked the characters and was very pleasantly surprised with how much they got me to care about them and sympathize with them. One minor gripe about the timeline, but that is not a big deal at all. So I am definitely looking forward to a second season of this. I don't know whether I would want to see more of this main character and see where his story goes from here, because they definitely do leave it at a point where that could be the case. I kind of think I want to see some different characters in this same world, and maybe that would give them the opportunity to explore some things that they don't necessarily get to go into in this one, or maybe some things they do, but a little more deeply. So I'm kind of split on that right now. I don't think I would necessarily mind it either way. I would have some pretty high standards set if they did decide to go with the route of continuing this protagonist story, just because of how great this first season was and how good his arc is in this first season, I think. So personally, I think I would lean towards wanting to see some different characters in the same universe, but I wouldn't necessarily mind it either way. So, love the show. Can't wait for season 2. I definitely recommend it to anybody who's into sci-fi, specifically hard sci-fi, as long as you are not going to be offended by a lot of nudity. Thank you guys for watching this video, and stay tuned for more.